And all right, welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I have with me such an amazing guest. I'm so excited to have the Brotherhood of Gaming's William Morris. William, go ahead and introduce yourself.
You promised me there would be booze here.
Oh, snap.
I'm a little disappointed in you. You told me something and then you didn't follow through. Now I'm on a talk show. What's this about?
Awesome.
You're trying to tell me that you're the #1 podcast in Hawaii, but now I'm questioning whether are there any other podcasts in Hawaii?
Well, I mean, I don't think so.
Just being a dick. Hey everybody, this is William Morris from the Brotherhood.com. If you know me, then that's awesome. If you don't know me, well, that's normal. Meanwhile,
stop being so modest.
Sure. I'm just trying to think of other voices to pull out of my ass, but maybe later.
Well, man, go ahead and let's get an introduction through and plug your channel and all the work that you're working on.
Oh, well, to give everybody insight on what happens in my neck of the woods, well, I run the Brotherhood of Gaming website and YouTube channel. If you guys are familiar with caricatures like Angry Video Game Nerd or maybe even the Game Grumps cast like Aaron Hansen, we do similar things. Like we do video game reviews. We used to do commentaries back in the day. Maybe every once in a while, depending on the fan demand, we might do some of those more. We do occasional live streaming, but also I am in voiceover, so I am being cast in several projects, and I'm currently working on a video game where I'm playing several characters, but I can't talk about that too much because of contractual obligations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm quite a busy caricature. I try to be entertaining with the reviews. I'm not overly comedic. I'm just more expressing my opinion. And of course I have other people that just kind of show up in the review. We have a Rob the Robot, who is kind of the snarky smartass, but unlike all the other reviewers out there who have a Rob the Robot in their videos and he's always evil and trying to kill them, our Rob the Robot is not evil. He's actually a good person, but he's just a snarky, wise-ass son of a bitch. I don't know if I can curse or not on this show.
You can say whatever you want, man. Completely organic. I don't care.
All right. So yeah, that's just how it is. Anyway, that's what I do. You can check us out by looking at checking us out on YouTube. You can just type in the Brotherhood of Gaming, and we will be the first and hopefully only result you find. I know that out there on the internet, we're not the only Brotherhood of Gaming out there, which has caused some confusion. And also, if you just straight up go to www.thebrotherhoodofgaming.com, that is us, and you will see my beautiful face and well, actually, no, I think the banner just changed, so you might not see my face anymore. But you'll see our logo, so that's always there. So, yeah.
Well, and people, the links to all of their stuff from their website to their YouTube channel, to Twitch, as well as Twitter, is down in the description below. So make sure you go smash the subscribe button on their YouTube channel and follow them on all their social media outlets.
You heard the man. Go now. Actually, wait till the show's over, then go and do it.
Awesome, man. Like, I know I didn't have this question in my list of questions, but I really want to dig into this because I'm friends with a lot of voice actors, but it's awesome knowing that you're a voice actor too, man. Like, how did you get into that? Let's go ahead. I know we should go into the gaming, but I'm really fascinated with that part. I really want to ask that.
Oh, well, I don't really like to talk about myself too much. You see, I'm very shy.
Well, weirdly enough, it's not that I was really inspired by anybody. It's just something that I guess for some people you naturally have certain talents and there are things that you like to do. And even as a child, the thing that I liked doing, or what I figured out early on, was I liked to be an entertainer. That's why even in elementary school, I didn't mind being in plays. And more often than not, I would sometimes get like the spotlight where I'd have to sing a song in spotlight and I'd have to go solo. And being an entertainer was not something that I was against. I enjoyed doing it. Sure, there was a little bit of the anxiety when it comes to having to perform, but the aftermath of going through the performance was something that was always really cool. entertaining people, just making people laugh, or just giving them a good show. As a child, I just was like, you know, I want to do this. I don't know if I will ever become an actor in big Hollywood, although I am in California and I will eventually move to Los Angeles, and we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to try various outlets, and it was something that I didn't decide to really start flourishing until probably in high school. Because in elementary school growing up, I was just very much a kid. I didn't think too much about the future. I was just kind of doing my own thing. It's like, yay, video games. Hey, animation. Hey, cartoons. And then when I went into high school is where I met some of my lifelong friends. And then I started getting introduced into like computers, and like that's where we discovered. And this is actually where my inspiration probably really came from. We were introduced to Newgrounds. Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys know what Newgrounds is. Like Newgrounds.com, back in the mid to late 2000s, or actually back in the 2000s period, Newgrounds was probably as popular as YouTube, I would say, because it was a very creative outlet where people could make their own little cartoons and animations and just little funny skits or whatever that they would make in a program called Flash. And I thought that was really cool, because I didn't understand it at first. I'm like, are these guys paid to make this stuff? Like, because, I mean, who would do this? I mean, how would you be able to learn this and figure out how to do this and spend so much time doing it? But no, it turns out that's really all it was, is they would somehow get their hands on the program, illegal crack, and they would create these little animations. And my favorite at the time, because these guys were super talented, I know they've long since graduated and moved on to bigger and better things, and I think they make their own video games now. The Super Flash Brothers, who were part of also Helix. And they created these little video game shorts called The Decline of Video Gaming, and they were like these little they weren't live action, but they were these little animated skits about gamers who just kind of went on these wacky adventures. And I thought that stuff was really cool, and it was really humorous. It made me laugh, and I'm like, you know what? That's what I want to do. Not necessarily Flash animation, but I want to be an entertainer like that. I love video games, and I like just being who I am. I think I'm a funny character in my own right. Well, maybe not that funny. I'm by no means a stand-up comedian. I'm not funny in that way. I'd probably bomb if I went on stage. But I'm just like, wow, this is it's very creative, and I like being creative, and I like doing things like that. So I taught myself how to use Flash, and I do know how to use Flash, but I don't have the drive, I guess, to create a full-on animation, mostly because it's just the time it takes to do that is very demanding. So yeah, even though I did learn early on how to use it, I was able to create like a couple of short things here and there, but I never pursued it beyond that. Just something I learned how to do, so it's cool to have that talent in the background. But then I discovered YouTube, and I was just like, you know what, we got a camera. And I decided from there, it's like, you know what, why don't I get my friends together and we just start making creative stuff for YouTube? And that's when the Brotherhood of Gaming really started. We didn't have any ultimate plans. Like we just kind of hit like the Joker from Dark Knight. Like, do I really look like the guy who has a plan? I just do. And our very first videos are very laughable. Like, they're funny to watch now, and a little embarrassing because I look at them and I'm like, my God. We were so full of life. We were so full of ambition and ideas. What happened to us? We became sad, bitter people that are trying to fight for views and trying to be part of the status quo and do things by the book, because being creative doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get watched anymore. So yeah, and from there, like, I figured out over time that I also had a talent for voicing things, and I just kind of got involved in that over time. And that it's kind of a boring story, but that's just really, things just kind of fell into place.
Tell the story. Nothing's boring on the podcast.
That's just it. Like, that's all she wrote. Yeah, from there, I just kind of, I checked out behind the voice actors, and I think what my first voice acting thing that I wanted to do is, our favorite video game of all time is Tales of Eternia. And over in Japan, there was a 13-episode anime.
Yeah.
spin-off of it that never came to America, and we had it, and we were like, wouldn't it be cool if we did like a fan translation of this? Or not a fan translation, or just a fan dub.
Yeah.
I think that was my first time doing it. I'm just like, you know what, this is fun. Editing this and like voicing this stuff, like this is fun. I could really get into more of this. And it was from there that I just kind of developed more voices and tested my range. So what voices can I do? Okay, can I imitate other characters? And I think that was the best way to start learning about my own ability. It's like, all right, so the best thing for me to do is to watch a whole bunch of different shows, cartoons, animes, video games, and check out my range. Like, can I hit the high notes? Can I hit the low notes? I know I can sing. I'm not professionally a singer like my family legacy is. I could, I just didn't. But who knows? Maybe in the industry, if I get there, I might have to. But so yeah, I went from like, can I do Roger Rabbit to a laugh can be a very powerful thing. Sometimes in life, it's the only weapon we have. Like 2003 Master Splinter. To be a true ninja, you must be one with the shadows.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kumatetsu from Boy and the Beast. Now we're in business. I hope you're ready for some serious training. A popular one that I do on my streams, which a lot of people like, is of course the Solid Snake.
It's only when I'm cheating death on the battlefield. The only time I feel truly alive.
Wow. Dude, you sound just like David Hayter. I mean, like, I wouldn't be able to like differentiate your impression of Snake and his. Like, that's phenomenal.
Thanks. I hope so. I mean, I can hear it because I know me and him. But I think what people like about it is that I've got the inflections. I have the mannerisms of how he talks. That sells it. And then we also have Ryuk from Death Note.
Light, don't ignore me when I'm talking to you, or I'll get mad.
Wow.
You've taken quite a liking to it.
So I'm had to say this. So when I interview, I have an upcoming interview with David Hayter in the next couple of months. You want to co-host that with me?
Oh, I would like to. In fact, I've met with Quentin Flynn on quite a few times. We've jaw jacked, and I'm good friends with Quentin, and I'm also really good friends with his mother. Like he sent me a way to try to get in contact with David at one point or other, but I guess he was just too busy at the time. I mean, the man he's really busy. I mean, he's a director. He's really active. So whatever, just never panned out.
Well, if you want to, offers on the table.
Oh, sure. Definitely. That'd be nice. Just to be able to have a snake off.
Who's the imposter?
That's gonna be awesome, man. Yeah, and I'm glad you were you went into like things that you've been doing, like the voice acting and your journey to it, because voice acting has really, I feel like from the late 90s when people were starting to take notice of it to now, it's just exploded. Like, so many people want to be a voice actor at this point. I feel like the barrier of entry in a way is kind of harder now than it was like, say, the early 2000s. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you know what? You really hit the nail on the head. And I think to add on to this is another one of my bigger inspirations is Kevin Smith. And I'm sure a lot of you know who Kevin Smith is, like Jay and Silent Bob. Like back in his day, back in the early 90s when he was going to make a clip for this, like, he had no ambition of being what he is today. He didn't know he was going to do all that. He was just a guy like you or me or anybody else back in the 80s. Is like, oh my God, a new Batman movie is coming out. I'm going to quit my job and go see this movie. And he did that. And then one time later, he saw a film and he's just like, you know what? I can do that. And in the early 90s, he had to sell off his entire comic book collection. He had to max out several credit cards just to be able to afford to rent a camera and to be able to afford to rent out some lots so he could film there and, of course, pay the people who he's working with. Today, you don't have to do that. You have all of this technology in your pocket. You can pull out your phone and make a movie.
Exactly.
Like,
and all the editing stuff is now on an app on your phone now. It's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's all so easily obtainable and easily done. If you have the drive, you can do it. And unfortunately, I guess you could say that everybody and their mother now sees that and they've wanted to get involved, and that makes it very difficult to stand out amongst the crowd. And since everybody now has the technology and the ease and the means of doing it, trying to be creative in a way that stands out and shows that you got what it takes is so much more difficult. Putting it on YouTube, nobody's going to care. There's so many steps. Like, really, some people would probably argue the best way to get into the business is you got to know somebody.
Yeah.
So unless you get really,
and I kind of see that same thing, like, when it comes to YouTube, because I got into YouTube about 2 years ago, and I started off like reviewing like gaming headphones and different tech, and I tried to do phone reviews, and I got to the point where about a year and a half ago, I started reviewing games. And, I told, you and I have talked about this offline, like, you guys have been one of the biggest inspirations for me getting into reviewing and YouTubing. And it's, I've noticed with YouTube and in many different creative outlets, but it really doesn't matter how creative you are. It's hard to get people to actually, it helps, but it's hard to get people to recognize, like, even with, I can say, like, with this podcast, like, I host it, or primarily on YouTube, like the initial, but I'll upload it to iTunes or Spotify or Google Play Music, and I'm getting thousands upon thousands of listens and downloads. But then when it comes to, like, if I do a review, then I'm getting, a couple hundred here and there. And I'm like, man,
hold on. You're pulling in those numbers? I'm in the wrong area.
Dude, podcasting, it has blown my mind. I started podcasting December of last year. And from my first episode, I pulled like 20,000 downloads. And I just started doing that. Like, I just do organic conversations, and I started interviewing other YouTubers. And then I went and started interviewing voice actors. I reached out. My first voice actor I interviewed was Griffin Burns from he's the main character of Yokai Watch and the main character of Shining Resonance Refrain. And I just, that one pulled in hundreds of thousands of downloads. And then I just started doing more and more voice acting. I just reached out, hey, would you like to be on the show? And podcasting has just, it blows my mind.
Wow.
How big.
Like, apparently you had the right mind to do this. Like an idiot, I've just been on YouTube.
And it's amazing because I never would have thought podcasting would be such an untapped market, but it really is. It's like, whoa! Like, when you look at I look back on the numbers of downloads and listens, I'm like, man, this is crazy.
Wow. So who knows? It's an outlet to look into, because we've done podcast-ish type things for the channel where we jaw-jacked in front of a microphone and we just kind of upload it to YouTube, and that's it. We don't have any iTunes or any plugs of that nature. I don't even know the first thing about running an actual podcast on a radio show.
Hey, I can help you with that.
I know, something to look forward to down the line, but then at the same time, it's something that I also got to stick with. And it's busy enough for me as it is. It's like, oh, I missed a day of a podcast. Suddenly a whole week's gone by.
Hey, you know what? And I'm in that same boat, because only now I'm more consistent with it. But before, I'd do like one episode a month. And then I started getting people like emailing me or hitting me up on social media, like, when's the next episode? I'm like, you guys actually like the last one? Yes. I was like, oh, crap.
Okay, hey guys, if any of you are listening out there, I expect like 300 more followers on my Twitter now at TBOG Gaming. So yeah, you bet TBOG Gaming. Yeah, you better get over there now. I want proof of this. I want to see these numbers.
Really, man, it really blows my mind. I'm like, man, nobody's hopping on this podcasting thing. Because you would never think that it's something a lot of people enjoy, but I feel like YouTube right now is so oversaturated, it's hard to get noticed unless you're doing something controversial,
Well, I don't know. Maybe unless you're good at what you do. Like, for example, becoming a Let's Player, I think is a done art. Like, don't even. Unless you've got the quality of Game Grumps, but then again, they were also somebody's before they were Game Grumps.
Yeah.
So it just kind of came in. Also, to sidetrack for a little bit, being a Let's Player is something that's really hard to do, because early on in the Brotherhood gaming career, we did Let's Plays for a little while. And it's really hard to do on your own. if you don't have that sort of stand-up comedian sort of thing where you can just talk to yourself and talk to a crowd that may not be there. But I find it's a lot more engaging and fun when you have somebody that you can jaw jack with and you're just sitting there talking, and you can even find something funny to talk about. And I think that's what helped us out for a little while, is we did have people that we could just have on the show and do it regularly. And from there, that's why we became the Brotherhood again. So now we have multiple people doing multiple things.
Yeah, it's I've tried my hand at trying to do a lot of Let's Plays and whatnot. I mean, I can talk to myself, but after a while, I'm like, there's only so much I can say to myself and respond as my other self, you know.
And ultimately, we did end up getting out of Let's Plays because as we did start taking YouTube more seriously and our career in YouTube more seriously, there were hurdles that just couldn't be overlooked. And unfortunately, with how recent laws and abuse of certain rules and acts, doing Let's Plays is a very risky thing, because even now, for old Let's Plays we've done years ago, I'm getting emails like, you got a copyright claim, like this is claim, you can't make money on this anymore. So we practically had to give up Let's Plays altogether, because it's just such a risky thing that you always have to fight the system. Whereas if we just continue to do what we do, from video game reviews to our Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo show, to our top 10s, to the Tales of Retrospective stuff, to our retrospective series on various franchises, that sort of thing is so creative and informative enough that even if we show footage for long periods of time, they can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and it's one of the things, like, I wanted to ask you, like, what has been your experience, being a content creator on YouTube, and what have been some of the ups and downs, that you've experienced in your YouTube journey?
There's been a lot of ups and downs. Regrets, I've had a few. But I did it my way. Oh man. It's just all been a learning experience. It starts off like we were still doing this when YouTube was in its prime, and we were just kind of doing this for fun. We would make skits. Like our very first video was like a Streets of Rage live action spoof where I dressed up as a character from Streets of Rage, and we went into the back alley of these department stores, and we had like our friends dress up as bad guys, and we just just filmed like the fighting with the sound effects, and it was just fun, creative stuff. We didn't have the mindset of like, oh, this is gonna make us big. We were just like, in fact, we were thinking about doing a documentary next year, since it's going to be the 10-year anniversary of Brotherhood Gaming, and it was going to be a documentary called two dumbasses having a fun time or something, or two dumbasses who wanted to have fun. And it would just talk about our career of being YouTube people and just social media and what we tried to do and what we tried to share. And how it starts off just very creatively, just having fun. But then as time went on, we started to notice, okay, there are certain things that you can do to generate an audience. There are kind of unwritten rules that you should follow, ways to film a video, ways to edit a video, do's and don'ts. Your intro to a video should be this long, not this long. If you're going to have live stuff before you get to the review, like make sure it's this long, this long. There were just so many rules that it got very complicated, and in some ways you could say it killed the fun a little bit, but it kind of just, at the same time, it presented a challenge. But amidst all that, we still tried to keep the creative stuff coming, and every now and then, even though we tried to do things professionally, we would still kind of do things that flew in the face of that and do something completely random. And I think that's what kind of hurt us a little bit, because our audience has now been completely split from people who liked very specific things from our reviews, but they wouldn't show up for the creative stuff. And then you had people that showed up for the creative stuff, but they didn't come back for the reviews. So we just had a complete divide. So at the end of the day, like, you can't please everybody, but you got to please somebody.
Yeah.
We went for just pleasing ourselves, and it's like, why not take this seriously? Why not try to make it professional? I mean, if all of those other guys, like James Rolfe or Aaron Hansen, or you can name any other YouTube celebrity out there, if they can run a professional channel and make it like run like with the professional thumbnails, with all of the clever editing, why can't we do that? And we can do that, and we do that. but we don't force the audience. We just kind of do the same thing that they do, but because the audience may or may not be there, or maybe it is, I don't know. It is what it is. But we've also made some mistakes and had to learn from them. Some mistakes are worse than others, and ultimately, I guess in the long run, the mistakes are not that bad in the grand scheme of things, especially in the real world. Like, real world people would be like, really? These are mistakes? Like, come on. I mean, you got Roseanne Barr, who made a tweet on Twitter that got her fired from her show, and then you compare that to what we've done, it's like, yeah, I guess. I guess it all depends on who you go to. And
yeah,
one of the biggest regrets that I had was just being ignorant. And not ignorant in the general sense, but ignorant to how things work in other places. Like, because again, it comes back to I'm not the guy with like an ultimate plan. I just do things because in the heat of the moment, I think it's cool, and I'd like to do something like it, and I'd like to share it. And being a whore for views, I'll kind of take any avenue I can get where I think the video or the project that we work on could be seen by others. And this was probably the mistake, but at the same time, it's kind of a scale. Like it did good things, but it also did not so good things. And this is when I started getting an interest in speedrunning. Now, for people who don't know in the audience, and I don't know how many of you that is, speedrunning is a community of like gamers out there who pretty much dedicate their lives to getting really, really good at a video game of their choice to the point that they can speedrun it and break world records and get some serious notoriety for doing so. And it's just, I guess it's a passion they have. You could probably look it up and come up with your own reasons as to why they do things. Some of them take it to very dangerous levels. Some of them do it casually, and some of them live and die by it.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this going into it. In fact, I never had any interest in being a speedrunner. I still don't have an interest in being a speedrunner. I just thought it was something that was really cool. And the Tomb Raider franchise was a franchise that we grew up and really loved, and I thought it was really cool when I saw that these speedrunners were taking advantage of glitches that I didn't know existed. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool how you can abuse a level and beat it in such creative ways. And I know that my partner, Gene, had never seen anything like that before because I hadn't. And I was just like, wouldn't it be really cool if I know I wouldn't be able to do it consistently without a lot of time to practice and time, which unfortunately I cannot afford to have. So I thought, what if I like did a playthrough on my own of like Tomb Raider, but doing all of the speedrunning tricks and all the glitches that they do. But like I know I'm gonna mess up a lot, so why don't I just save the game all over the place and I'll splice it together and create one completed project and make it look like it's all fluid and stuff, and then I'll show it to Gene so it's live for him, but he already knows what's up, and then we'll just commentate over it and present it as a show for entertainment. And but we present it like it's live because we're maintaining the illusion because we're showmen. Like it's not about trying to trick people, it's about just giving a good show. We're talking about our history with the franchise, our love for Tomb Raider, and we're giving them a good show, like check all this cool stuff out while we're doing it. And I didn't expect it to take off as much as it did. Like it took off. It got really huge. It ended up being like one of the best videos we had ever done. Like even now, I think it's got nearly 100,000 like views, and so many people love it. They love they came for the video, but they stayed for the commentary. We got so many wonderful comments and messages and emails about how they loved the commentary. The stories were so relatable. It reminded them of their history with the franchise, and it was just so much fun to watch because we were so energetic and so fun to listen to. And unlike regular speedrunners and speedruns in general, is they don't really commentate when they're doing their runs. It's really just the footage and how well they did, and that's it, because they're trying to go for the records, and that's generally all it is, unless they're at like an event like Awesome Games Done Quick where they are doing it live, but they're so focused on the game. We didn't want to do that, but we just kind of did what we did. And the first one was so successful that it's like, well, obviously I got to do more. And again, they were doing really well. And since they're doing really well amongst Tomb Raider people who love to watch it, and like we loved it, this is where the mistakes started to happen. Well, overall, I guess you could say the mistake was already made. But this is where things kind of showed me that maybe this was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because now the speedrunners started taking notice, or specifically the Tomb Raider speedrunners. They took notice, and to them, something was fishy. And admittedly, at the time, I didn't know how serious anybody took this stuff. I'm like, it's just video game speedrunning stuff. Like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did know is I did play it up for a laugh. And here's the thing. Now, when it comes to Tomb Raider video games, especially the old ones, which these are all about, there's the PC versions, and then there's the console versions.
Mm-hmm.
The PC versions, when it comes to speedrunning, are the go-to standard because there's no load times. The glitches you can do in them are more possible than they are in the console versions. The console versions are just not suitable for speedrunning.
Mm-hmm.
At least they weren't at the time. So, being that I did know that, and I saw that every other speedrunner was like using the PC version because you could abuse it to such an unfathomable degree,
Mm-hmm.
I only ever had the console version. So, for funsies, like an inside joke, what if we just called the console versions, like of our speedruns, the world record? Because it's the console version. Nobody plays it. Who's gonna care? And we were just like, yeah, just call it a world record. Nobody would care. It's an inside joke. We're playing the console version. They're playing the PC. Like, who's gonna? And we also keep all of the cutscenes in. We don't skip the cutscenes. I even went out of my way to add my own subtitles for the cutscenes so people could understand the story. Things that generally speedrunners don't do. Speedrunners don't put the cutscenes in if they can skip them. Like, there were so many obvious edits and things to show that this was not meant to be taken seriously. It was meant to just be for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But because we did that, because we were just like, hey, let's call it the world record, let's put the time code in just because we could, and it was like, and some people took it very seriously. And when the Tomb Raider speedrunners started to finally take notice, that's when it started to backfire, because then what I didn't know is what I did in terms of how I made the speedrun by splicing together the footage of all my best attempts.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually a common practice amongst real cheaters who tried to take and claim world records. In fact, the most notable one today, who was recently outed, is Billy Mitchell, the man behind King of Kong, the documentary, the man who held the Donkey Kong world record for 30 years, finally was outed for doing the exact same thing that I did. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is making me just look horrible, isn't it? And to add to that, before it dawned on me that the speedrunners were really getting upset with me, I went to an unofficial Tomb Raider speedrunning website because I was a view for whores and I was willing to do anything I could to get views. I tried to see if I could get our videos of our Tomb Raider videos posted on there because everybody else was loving them so much. We had heard so many wonderful things and wonderful stories about how people just absolutely love them. So I was just like, if they love it, they get it, I'll share it with all these guys. Maybe they'll like it too. Mistake. While the casual crowd love it, and they still do, the speedrunners really made it clear in a big bad way that we were not welcome, nor were we considered good people. We were thought of as liars. We were thought of as cheaters. We were getting slandered. Like, you guys are trying to claim records. You guys are cheating. You're lying. You're manipulating your audience. And it's like, wow. So yeah, and unfortunately, from their standpoint, I completely understood why they felt the way they did, because if you look at it from their perspective, it looks bad. It looks like because we did unknowingly, we did every trick that cheaters do unknowingly. Although we did keep the cutscenes in, and we did add subtitles, and we did add funny commentary, but apparently that's not enough to discredit it. But yeah, what was horrible about the whole situation is that it didn't matter what I could say to try to take responsibility, or as they like to call it, do damage control. there was nothing that I could say to fix the situation, because ultimately it was just a horrible misunderstanding. They thought we were literally trying to be legit with this whole thing and trying to claim records that we had no right to. Really, it was just jokes. We were not trying to like hurt the system. We were just doing it because we thought it was fun and a good idea at the time. And people liked it. Like, we didn't think we were like doing anything so horribly wrong. But unfortunately, they didn't see it that way. And sadly, because it's the internet and there's no proof, it's literally my word against theirs. This is what happened. This is how I did it. And from their standpoint, it looks bad. And I totally understand why they would think that way, because it's like, wow, they found out that I did try to get it published on an unofficial Tomb Raider speedrun website. I did on the videos at one point in time call them world records, even though it was done in jest. Wow. I wasn't very upfront with how they were made. Like, I never flat out lied and told them that, oh, like, it wasn't legit, but I was very like trying to avoid like destroying the illusion. And to them, that also looked like, oh, he's trying to cover his ass, and looked like, oh, he's lying. He's trying to pass it off as legit. Mm-hmm. And then when it finally dawned on me, like, oh, wow, yeah, they really do take this super seriously. Yeah, this might have been a big mistake. And even years later, we found out that they still couldn't let it go. And I was finding out that apparently in forums, they were slandering us. I'm like, wow, this has gone on for years and we didn't know.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and so eventually what we ended up doing is we're not going to take the videos down because they've done too well. People really like them. And even though the speedrunners, like a good majority of them, might hate us and hate them, they've done a lot of good. We've received so many wonderful comments from people who might have been depressed, who were, I don't know if they were suffering suicidal thoughts, but we did receive wonderful emails from people who were feeling very down. But when they watched those videos, they were uplifted, and it did so much good for them. And I can't get rid of that just because speedrunners, or these guys who take this stuff way too seriously than they should, got so offended by it, even if it was a complete misunderstanding. The videos have done so much good for people. People really like them. They like the commentary. They like watching it. It's just, I don't, it's a mixed bag. And my ultimate mistake was just ignorance. I didn't know how serious these people took it. I didn't know that even in jest, when we tried to call something a world record, even in jest when it wasn't really, would be such a bad thing. And that created a controversy and something, and it really did upset me for a while, because nothing I could do was going to fix this. Mm-hmm. I mean, in some reality, it's like you could say that these guys would never be happy with me until I deleted my channel and bowed down in front of a Tomb Raider poster and committed ritualistic suicide. Wow. They would want my blood. Unfortunately, it does. One thing I kind of had to get over is that there will never be any reasoning with these people. They've already made up their mind about who we are and what we've done, and there's nothing we can do about that. And we're not the only YouTubers and internet people that go through that. You can imagine the nerd, Angry Video Game Nerd, went through this at some point with some of the reviews that he said where he might have been inaccurate or maybe dumped on a game that people really liked. I know that Aaron from Game Grumps is well known for being the center of controversy because of his opinions, and he's given up at looking at comments altogether. So if you want to be in this business, you got to expect, unfortunately, certain controversy, even if it's unwarranted, even if it's something you didn't mean for it to happen or meant for it another way. Like even with Roseanne Barr, who made that tweet. Like, she may not be a racist at all. Like, John Goodman certainly didn't think so. And she's trying to say that it was just a joke. And you know what? She's a comedian. Comedians make these kind of jokes all the time.
Yeah.
It's just something that happens. And even if it's all meant for fun, some people in a community or a speedrunning community, or because they really like something and you didn't, will take it to such a wrong degree and try to ruin you for it and make you feel horrible. And it can be hard to get over that. So that's something that you really have to think about when you want to get into YouTube or putting yourself out there in any way, shape, or form. Even if you want to be a voice actor, some people, like some voice actors, when they're doing a dub of a project from Japan, can get horrible hate-filled comments from people who may love the Japanese version so much. And we know that's happened where like voice actors can just get it so bad.
Yeah.
And it may not ultimately be their fault, but maybe poor direction. So yes, I understand, guys, if I'm not saying don't do it. If you have to drive, go for it. But you got to expect that. I would say you got to grow thick skin, because whether you mean it or not, you may ultimately find yourself at the end of a hate stick, and people just might hate you for stupid reasons, even if you meant well. Unfortunately, that's just how our world is today. You just it's a learning experience. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, I know for me, like some of the stuff that like when I was getting into like reviewing, because now I've got this obsession with arcade sticks or fight sticks.
Right on.
And I've had this for like the last year and a half, and like one of my, if not my most popular video, was my unboxing and review of the Tekken 7 limited edition one from Hori. And I got my dislike to like ratio is astronomical.
See, I don't know about fight sticks. So, like, I know our buddy Nate, who is a major fighter into fight sticks. Like, I'll have several arcade sticks in front of me, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference or what's wrong. And he can like tap on the buttons repeatedly, move around the analog stick, and be like, "This is awful." And I'm like, "I don't what." Oh yeah, I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine.
You know, and I'm still kind of new to it. Like now I'm learning about the gates, like octagonal, hexagonal. Like even to me, still, I just want to pick up something and play it. You know, and I got the arcade stick because I thought, man, this looks really cool. I like the art. It looks cool. I haven't really touched the arcade stick since there's no arcades in Hawaii. Haven't been for the last 5 years, but
we still have arcades here in California.
I envy you right now.
I mean, I have one across the street that has like a big Pac-Man, like world's largest Pac-Man machine. I've got 3 in the general area.
But yeah, but you know, like I got to unbox. I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna do an unboxing. I'm gonna review it if I like it, you know. And it was basic unboxing, and I played around with it. You know, I showed myself playing some Tekken 7, some Street Fighter with it. I got so much vitriol and hatred in the comments. They're like, you play like crap. You don't know anything about fighting games. You suck. You didn't talk about if this was Hayabusa buttons or Sanwa buttons. And I'm thinking, I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah.
I just picked it up and I liked it. Like, you know, and it really is something. Like I've had other videos where, you know, I can review something or I can speak on something. Like I like Smash Brothers, but I don't consider it like a traditional fighting game. And
that.
you know, I got so much hate, even to the point like another big Nintendo YouTuber called me out, and that got so out of control that his fan base was sending me death threats and stuff, and to my wife and everything like that.
I'm like, by the way,
huh?
Which YouTuber was that? The big one?
Player Essence.
Oh, never heard of him.
Yeah. His fan bases kind of went real psychotic with that.
Well, let me be real with you for a second. Like Super Smash Brothers is not what you would call a fighting game. It's a party game. It's unbalanced. It's meant to be for good old-fashioned fun. It's not your fault or problem if there's tons of gamers out there that take Super Smash Brothers so seriously. And I know that there are people that travel the world.
We'll just trigger people by saying that.
I know there are gamers out there that travel the world for competitive competitions for Super Smash Brothers Melee because that was the most balanced the series has ever been, with several characters that are literally just repeats of the same character, just with minor tweaks in their moveset. But guys, I'm sure this was not Nintendo's intention. They were just trying to make a fun party game that was originally something else. It didn't pan out. They decided to put their Nintendo mascots in it, and then they shot the breeze and let it go. That was it. It was a party game, the same vein as Mario Kart, Mario Party. It was just good old-fashioned fun. People took it so seriously, and that's what we have now, a community that just continues to take this stuff super seriously. There's nothing wrong if you want to take it seriously and have a great time with it. But when you start belittling and treating other people horribly over a video game that really is just meant to be about what Nintendo's priority is fun, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will stand firm. Like, I love Super Smash Brothers. I think it's hella fun, especially if you play it with the right kind of people. But in the worst of days, you could have a horrible experience with some horrible people who just really take this like gospel, like they take this more serious than the Bible.
Yeah,
That's people get in fights. People die over this. I mean, that's scary to think about, but it's true. I mean, just like in sports, man, if you walk out of a football stadium and you cross a bad loser who just lost their team, like, oh man, you could end up getting killed, and it happens. Horrible to think, but it happens.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the fact that people go so far with this whole Smash is a fighter. I'm like, it is a party game. I'm like, even Nintendo themselves don't call it a fighting game. The creator calls it a battle arena party game. And they're like, oh, I don't care. It's a fighting game, and you're stupid. You don't know this. I'm like, my God, people, just chill.
Honestly, even I've given up on the comments recently. Like, I don't get involved in the comments. Like, even though they're generally nice, Aaron from I know we mentioned Ego Raptor. Like, I was watching him recently, and you know what? Frankly, he and I are similar in a lot of ways. We don't exactly share the same opinions and everything, but in terms of experiences and how we go about dealing with them, it's very similar. He said, like, you know, the good comments, even though there might be a ton of them, they're not worth the bad comments and the stress and anxiety that you get after. Yeah. You know what? I agree with that. So it's like, you know what? I'll release the content. I'll let it loose to the world, and whatever the comments are, let it be. I'm not going to get involved. Even if I get like a horrible comment that contradicts what I say, I'm not going to get involved because it stops right there. If you don't get involved, it stops there. If you get involved, the fire is only fueled, and it could spiral and get even worse. So don't even. Yeah. Let them hate and just keep doing what you do.
I mean, you have to. It's best for your sanity too.
It really is.
To not, because I mean, I have a lot of people. Some people will hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, and they're like, "Did you see my comment?" I'm like, and I'll just say, "No, I was busy." But it just, I really don't try to go through my comment section.
I know. I don't have time to waste on it. I've got too many other videos to make and release. If they want to see it, they will. Yeah. If at any point we start responding to comments, we'll probably make a video and choose specific questions that they ask, and we'll do it that way. But being very confrontational with them directly in the comments, I think, can lead to disaster. Even Pat the NES Punk, who's done that, I think that's backfired quite a few times in the comments. So it's a dangerous game you're playing when you contact people indirectly, when they can hide behind the anonymous wall and don't have to pay for the horrible things they say, and they can just call you whatever they want.
Yeah, it's really something. I had to wait for that bus to go by. That bus was loud. I want to ask you.
Yeah, let's get on a lighter note.
Oh. So I want to ask you, given that you review games from like the classics to the current gen of gaming, what is your preferred era of gaming?
Well, the old man in me prefers the old stuff because the new stuff just sucks. I know that's what a lot of people would like to say, but no. You know, it's a mixed bag. Not everything from the old days was good. I mean, Milon Secret Castle? No. Back in the day, it was such a pioneering age. Coming up with ideas, trying to see what sticks, and trying to create wonderful adventures in games around those themes. And even today, we're continuing that sort of. Like, we've already seen the best of what we can come up with, but now it's time to try to find ways to get creative with it, or simpler ways. And there's a lot of games today that are, you could say, carbon copies. Like, I'm not saying that they're not good games, but like Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, the new rebootish Tomb Raider series. How many games feel the same when you're playing them? I mean, it's virtually the same stuff with a different coat of paint.
Yeah.
So, not that they're not good games, but it's just the same stuff. And I could say that the older stuff is better because that's when they were being creative, at their most creative, and trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And that potentially could have created some of the best stuff and stuff we remember the most. But it's not to say that there can't still be some great surprises and great stuff today. Maybe it's because we're not kids anymore, so we're not with it. But I do think that back in the day we created more iconic characters, and I don't think there's many iconic characters that are being created today. I mean, back then you have your Mega Mans, you have your Links, you have your Marios, you have your Sonics, you have your Knights into Dreams, you have your Star Foxes, you have your Soras from Kingdom Hearts, you have Reed from Tales of Eternia, Simon Belmont. Are there really any characters in today's games that kids like to play now that are recognizable? Like Fortnite, is there a lead hero in Fortnite that people will remember from years, or is Fortnite just a thing that people play while they're pooping?
That's all it seems like. Dude, I can't get into Fortnite. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, let's play some Fortnite. Let's play some not League of Legends. What's the other one? Some other free-to-play shooter. I can't even think of it. But, it's like the popular games now, and it's like, to me, I just find them boring. I guess, growing up in the, late 80s and early, in the 90s, like, seeing how gaming evolved to where it is now, it's just cookie cutter. It's like, what can we throw out there that we can hook you in and make you just spend more and more money? Let's give you something that's free, quote unquote.
I think the difference is nowadays they're so multiplayer focused.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, and not to say that they still don't do it today. I mean, Spider-Man came out and that was amazing.
Yeah.
They had an
awesome review, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. They came out with single-player adventure experiences where the experience in the adventure was all around just the person who was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, those are my favorite kind of games. Like, multiplayer games don't really fascinate me too much. Like, again, it's just like Smash Brothers. If you're playing with the right crowd, you can have an amazing time. But even Smash Brothers can be boring if you're playing it by yourself constantly.
Yeah.
And multiplayer games just aren't totally my thing. I like playing them. Street Fighter every now and then, Smash Brothers every now and then. Recently, I just started playing Friday the 13th for the PlayStation 4 because I'm able to leech off my friend's PlayStation Plus.
Mm-hmm.
That can be fun, but I find the most joy I get when playing a video game is going on my solo adventures. If I'm Lara Croft, running around trying to raid tombs or fulfill side quests. If I'm Link, trying to save Hyrule after my long 100-year sleep in Breath of the Wild. If I'm playing an RPG or a role-playing game where I have to get invested into the story and I have to make my character stronger to progress further in that story.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thing that I really enjoy about games. That's my go-to. I love the adventures. I love the stories. The gameplay is equally as important. And with today, I feel that a lot of developers have kind of figured out an easy way out. I mean, you got Konami who pulled out, and they're just kind of sticking with the pachinko and remarketing some of their old stuff. And then you have other franchises like Namco and who are trying to do these microtransaction games for cell phones because they know they can nickel and dime the player to get whatever they want.
Yeah.
And so it's just a natural evolution of things. Like, can they work? Sure. Some far few in between. I don't know. Like, it's a personal taste thing. You'll never get a definitive answer out of anybody. It's whatever people make of it. I prefer good games. It's all I want. I want good games. There are good games today. Breath of the Wild came out like at the end of beginning of last year, right? That's fantastic. I love that game. It's amazing. I did absolutely everything, and I couldn't put it down. Loved it to death. The newest of the Tales games, I think, are horrible. Tales of Berseria, I think, is trash. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hatred for saying that because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, my waifu, she's in that. Like, how dare you? Hey, if you love it, good for you, man. More power to you. I'm not saying for love. But I like quality.
And I feel like with Tales of Berseria and even, God forbid, Tales of Zestiria, I feel like what happened was you had a series that went from being unique and niche to they tried to modernize it and mainstream it.
I didn't hate Tales of Zestiria like everyone else did.
I didn't either.
I thought it was pretty good, all things considered. I didn't love it, but I was like, you know what? This is not the worst thing ever. It did some things that I really didn't like. But wow, I don't know how Berseria just royally screwed the pooch. But we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, like when because I like Tales of Eternia. I like Tales of. I actually didn't mind Tales of Legendia. I think I'm saying that right. Legendia, Legendia.
It's a good game, and it's right.
Yeah, and
I mean, for a Tales game to be made by the people who make Soul Calibur and Tekken, not a bad attempt.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because I want to go into this question too. Is like, I've noticed that mainstream opinion of things seems to just, they could take a game that isn't terrible at all. It could be a good game, but it seems like so many of the content creators and YouTubers and journalists, they just all pony into one mindset. And then you have people that don't even try games anymore because they'll go off of whatever's the popular opinion. And I think that's so unfortunate. There's so many great games that just don't get played,
Oh, scary. We're talking about opinions. Oof.
Right?
Oh my. This is horrible.
It's mind-boggling. Like the fact that so many people
people think for yourself.
Exactly.
Stop listening to other critics. And you know what? And I have seen a lot of people starting to make that change. Like, I'm part of a Castlevania group, and somebody was posting around, like, I won't say who, but there's a popular YouTuber who we may have already mentioned at one time, and they posted like his review of like Simon's Quest or Castlevania 4, I forget which. And people were saying that they don't bother listening to those people because they already have formed their own opinion and they don't always agree with those types of people. And I sit there and I saw that. I'm like, you know what? Good for America. People can make their own decisions and don't have to be bandwagoners and take what a popular YouTuber says as gospel.
Yeah. And, and so many do that. And I think that's one of the things like I've started doing in my reviews. Like I'll say, hey, I think this game is great, but why don't you tell me what you think and try for your own self?
Oh, so you're copying me.
Hey, greatness is always inspired by other greatness.
You're copying me. I want a nickel every time you said it. What? Will you bury me in the cold, cold ground?
Oh, man. But, it's just one of the things. Like, I really want, because I remember growing up, and my family couldn't afford all the games that came out. Thank God we had Blockbuster at the time, and even what was it, Hollywood Video Rental? I think that was another one. And we, I couldn't buy the games, but I could rent them and play them, and that was always cool. And then, growing up seeing like Game Pro and EGM and tips and tricks, being able to read about games.
Yeah, I still have a few Hollywood video games I got to take back.
Hey, it's been a while,
I wonder. I wonder if the store is still there.
What's that late fee gonna be?
Hi guys, I still have your Mega Man X2. Like, your Hollywood Video embroidered stamp is on the back. I'm not kidding either. Like, my Mega Man X2 and my Mega Man X3 have Hollywood stamped onto the back.
And the fact that you even have those cards is amazing. They're so expensive.
Oh, man, all right.
Man. Well, speaking of which, since we just spoke about Mega Man,
I mean, you know that story, right? About how I got those cartridges?
Yeah. But you want to tell the audience?
Oh, sure. All right. For the people who are listening, the wonderful people that you are, who aren't stupid, because stupid people don't watch my videos, and stupid people don't like my videos. Because you guys aren't stupid. Mega Man X 1, 2, and 3. Well, Mega Man X 2 and 3 are Super Nintendo games, and by today's standards, they are incredibly expensive to own. If you don't already have them, you could be paying top dollar of upwards to, if not over $300, if you want to own these games.
Yeah.
Now, back in the early 90s, let's just turn back the clock. Back when I was a wee lad of, say, 7, I owned 1, 2, and 3 for the Super Nintendo. I was an only child, and I had every single console, so unlike all the other kids who were in the console wars, trying to figure out what console was better than the other, Sega or the Super Nintendo, because one had 16 bits and one had 8 bits, and we're not even sure what a bit was.
Blast processing.
That was a thing too, thank you. I was a child who had the best of both worlds, and Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3 were among my favorite Super Nintendo games until years later, in the late 90s, they were stolen from me. I never saw them again. It was quite a tragic day. Oh, the tears. Oh, the crying. Oh, I don't think any of that happened, actually. But yeah, they were stolen, and over the next 15 years, I would be dedicating my life to trying to get them back. I was able to get X1 back because it's $30 and easy to afford.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw that X2 and X3 were going to cost an arm and a testicle. And I was not willing. Just was not.
Oh my God, you said arm and a testicle.
So I was willing to bide my time and wait it out. Hopefully it would go down in price. Sadly, it did not. One day, recently, like a few years ago, I go to the flea market with my cousin. And we go to the resellers who are there to sell you video games at obnoxious prices, but they think just because they're in a flea market that you're willing to buy them, even though most people don't show up with those kind of funds. I saw Mega Man X2 sitting right in front of me, and it had been years since I'd seen one in physical form. And I picked it up, and I held it, and I looked at it, I sniffed it, I licked it, and I was just like, oh, I must have it. And the guy selling it was like, I will sell it to you for $90. And I'm just like, $90? I gotta think about this. Not only do I not have the cash, but am I contemplating thievery? No. So I stand there, like, looking at it, constantly holding it for like a good 10 minutes, and I finally make the unfortunate decision to put it back because not only do I not have cash on hand, it's just not what I wanted to pay for it. So I call my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell him, like, Dad, I just went through the experience, like, one of those games that was stolen from you, like, I found it, and he's just like, why didn't you get it? And I was like, because it was like $90. And he's like, boy, there's plenty of money in the world. You'll always make more of it. If you want something, you gotta strike while the iron's hot. I'm like, damn it. And he's just like, you know what? I'll even help you buy it. And I was like, okay. I knew the reseller on Facebook, so I messaged him up asking, do you still have the Mega Man X2? I'm willing to buy it. And he's just like, oh, no, hold on. I have another person who's ready to buy it on hand right now. I'm talking with him. And he's willing to offer me more for it. And at this point, I'm just like, this jerk is going to hold me out just because now he knows I want it. So now he's going to charge me more for it, or wait until I offer him a bigger price. I'm very frustrated at this point. And I don't even bother haggling with this guy. You know what I do? I take to my Twitter, and then I just complain. And I'm like, and I tell my whole story about how I used to have these games when I was a kid. They meant so much to me. They were stolen. I find one at a reseller stand at a flea market, and now I'm being strong-armed into paying more money than what I originally would have. And not even 5 minutes later, I got a really good friend who showed up, and he's just like, dude, I have Mega Man X2 and X3. I don't really play them much. I've just had them for years, and they just sit here. I'll give them both to you for $40.
Wow.
Jaw drops, and I couldn't have slammed the money on the table even harder. So yeah, I made the payment. I took pictures, and I posted the picture on the flea market reseller group. And the first person to see it is the guy who was trying to sell me X2. And like his first response is pretty much, what is this? And I'm just standing there like, what did you expect?
Wow.
So I think that's just a great story of pulling a fast one on a flea market reseller who really thought they put one over on me and had me. So yeah, the moral of that story, kids, is bide your time.
I mean, really, That's basically how it is. Like I had a similar situation where like I had when I moved out here to Hawaii back when I was about 15. Oh, good God, that's 15, almost 16 years ago. When I was 15, I brought a lot of my classic collection from like the Super Nintendo, the Sega Saturn. Like I had what you call it, Panzer Dragoon, Saga, Zwei, the original. I had Burning Rangers, everything in mint condition, along with my PS1, PS2 collection, 64 collection. And I just brought them out here, and I moved into my dorm. And after my first 2 years of college, I don't know how someone just stole my entire collection with my consoles. Man, that broke.
He's got a Sega Saturn, brother.
Right? Yo, I was just devastated. I'm like, man, I grew up, and I inherited the bulk of my games from my older brothers too, and it's like, wow, all that history just
that was I'm pretty sure that was an awkward family reunion.
It was. My brothers were hella mad at me.
How are my old games?
Right? And it's like, and I ran into a similar situation. I was on Craigslist, I was looking around, at the local. We had a game store called Toys and Joys where you could find old and retro games and new games. And I literally was just like biding my time because I wanted everything back. It took me some time. It took me about 12 years to get everything back that I had before. And now it's like, I don't tell people where I live. They're like, oh, where do you live, by university or something? I'm like, I live in Honolulu. Where exactly? You'll never know. I'm not chancing my games again.
I have surveillance cameras. I have dogs.
Right? Electrified fence.
I live on the second floor, so it's not easy to get to.
Nope.
Ultimately, not worth it.
No.
I have one of those ADT signs sticking on the window to let them know that the place is going.
Right.
Even if it's a lie, I just put it on there because then they got to think about it.
Got the sniper detail, watching, ready to pick off people.
I got the Power Rangers defense thing on the door, so if you pass the sonar, the Power Rangers voices come out and say, "This room is protected by the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers." Like priorities, man. You got to think defensively.
Right. Oh man, yeah. It's been something, man. Like gaming has really been a lot of fun. It's been. I feel like gaming.
I hate video games, man.
Lies. This is all lies. We know you love video games.
Nothing good ever comes of it. My life is in shambles. My wife left me. Well, that's for a different reason altogether. It was because she said Tales of Eternity sucked, and that caused a whole nother argument that went into some dark places.
Hey, I have to ask you though, with the recent Mega Man that came out, Mega Man 11, I saw your review and I loved it, and I really implore everyone who's watching and listening to definitely go and check out their review of it. What do you see as the future of the Mega Man franchise, and do you think we have a new X title in the works?
I have spent many nights laying in bed, masturbating and thinking about how to make the best Mega Man X game, and I'm just like, yeah. That's how I would do it. No, I'm kidding. Serious about the second part and the first part. Now, here's how I envision the perfect Mega Man X game. Now, it would never happen because they'd have to hire me, and that'll never happen. And I don't think Capcom of Japan would ever relinquish the rights to like Capcom of America to create a Mega Man game, because it's just like, no, they'll never do. But I kind of envision, what if you had a Mega Man X game that was a cross between Zelda Breath of the Wild and Metal Gear Rising?
Ooh. I can dig that.
Where it's completely open world. You have the futuristic cities of like Neo Arcadia where X is hanging around. But I would also make plot a bigger like I would make it like Breath of the Wild, where the plot is there if you're willing to explore. I would have civilizations. I would have like people walking around. I would have NPCs walking around, and if you decided to walk on the floor on the same level with them, you could hear them talking in the background. You'd be able to if you had X just walking on the floor, like you'd have Reploids and you'd have humans walking around, because humans is something that strangely is kind of absent from the Mega Man universe. Like you always hear like, oh, I want robots and humans to live in peace. Can you think of a time in the Mega Man X series aside from Dr. Kane, have you ever seen a human?
Nope. Not
Like,
one.
yeah, where is all this stuff? Like even in X5 and X6, they talk about, oh, humans had to evacuate. In Mega Man X8, humans evacuated to the moon. Where is this happening? How come we don't ever see any humans or hear their thoughts on the matter? I mean, you have Sigma, who's causing trouble, like destroying the world. You imagine there's got to be humans who flat out hate robots and Reploids and think that they're all trash. Because it's like, look how devastating the Earth is. Like we're practically run off our own planet, having to evacuate to the moon because freaking robots, man, freaking Reploids, man. Dr. Kane, screw Dr. Kane. I knew he was a bad guy. I mean, he was creating Reploids, and that caused all this hell and mayhem. What about Mega Man X? Yeah, he's the reason. Like ever since Mega Man X was discovered centuries ago by Dr. Kane, like it's been nothing but hell. Like there's got to be humans that think that way, right? Like activists, like anarchy activists, but there's also got to be humans that are totally for like Reploids, man. Like yeah, Reploids, they're awesome. I mean, they've helped civilization. I mean, they help do jobs that other people can't do. I mean, they help the disabled. Like if people can't move around, they help. And there's good Reploids. Like one of my best friends is a Reploid, and he has his own apartment. Like, do Reploids have apartments? Do they have jobs? And do they get paid like other people do? Do they eat for fun? I mean, we know that they don't need to eat food to live, but like in the Mega Man cartoon series, like it was already discussed in that one that, yeah, Mega Man can eat. He doesn't have to, and he can eat it for fun, and it just kind of gets burnt up into his core. But for recreation, like, yeah, can Reploids do that? That'd be things that I think are worth exploring if you want to expand the lore properly. Like, have Mega Man X, like, if you decided to, and you don't want to just, like, wall jump on the buildings and like run around the field, walk around humans, and you could probably have like in the distance, like you can have it in the background, like, hey, is that Mega Man X? Oh wow, I heard he was a legendary hero. Like,
right?
Just have people talking in the background while you're walking through the city or running through the city. It's like, oh wow, look, that's Mega Man X. He's a Maverick Hunter. Like he's part of the police force. Like wow, like I haven't seen him in a long time. I thought he was a myth. Like he's. Like you could have Mega Man X have his own apartment, and like you could explore Mega Man X's apartment. Does he have a capsule in there so he can talk to Dr. Light, or at least the AI of Dr. Light? Like these are all things that I thought about that would make a great Mega Man X game, like a cross between Metal Gear Rising and Breath of the Wild, where you have a world that is as big as Breath of the Wild. You can travel and go to many places, multiple cities, different cities in different types of climates, and you can have Mavericks that are causing trouble in each one. And you can also have the gameplay that's similar to Rising. And by Rising, I mean, of course, X doesn't usually carry a sword and start slashing. But what if you had a combo system where X is just firing off blasts close range and doing combos where it's just blasts? Like, creative stuff that I don't think has been done before. Like, yeah, instead of how naturally, like in a hack and slash, you'd have a sword swinging, what if it's just close up X just shooting in very close range creative ways? Like, you're still using your buster, but close range. And you could also, if you wanted to, like go into third person and shoot other things.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry if I'm going on, but yeah, these are ideas.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, these are ideas that I've just spent a long time thinking of. Like, wow, they'd be really creative if they did this. And I know that if I don't have the ability to develop a game, but I know that if I was in the boardroom and I was discussing with them like the game plan on, okay, this is how I've developed this world, this is how I see it, can we do this? Like, all right, who can we assign to work on this project? Let's get a team to, okay, like you guys are in charge of creating the world. I want it to be as big as Skyrim. Make the world, and it's got to be futuristic. I want forests in there. There's got to be a forest. Like it's got to have technology in it. There's no getting around that. We have to have at least a couple of cities, 3 at most. One of them's got to be near Arcadia or Able City or whatever, or wherever X decides to live. You have to have several climate areas. Just make it a big world. And yeah, like you also have to have X be able to get around. So you can have him like Raiden. If you hold the R2 button, you can have him like just automatically like wall jump up a building or wall jump up anything. Because they tried the wall jumping in Mega Man X7 and it was kind of funky. So I think now if you just hold a button, like he'll just automatically do it whatever he's nearest to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have all these really wonderful and great ideas of how they could do it, and I'd love to get the chance to shoot it to them, but unfortunately, I was already told by Capcom themselves that they don't accept ideas from non-Capcom working people.
Man, but didn't they promoted that Mega Man Cross Street Fighter fan game though, didn't they?
Because Capcom was all for Street Fighter at the time, like anything and everything Street Fighter.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure they only did it because Street Fighter was on it. They didn't give a crap about Mega Man at the time. It was like, oh, Street Fighter, we'll do it.
Okay.
And that's because the work was already done. They didn't help make it. It was just, let's just put our name on it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I mean, I from some inside sources, I have heard that if Mega Man 11 does really well, they are going to proceed to work on.
Oh, I think Mega Man 11 has done exceptionally well. In fact, Mighty Number 9, I think just is like, man, what happened? Like I said it once and I'll say it again. Keiji Inafune, a good game does not make.
I agree with that. And the funny thing is, Mega Man 11 is still sold out statewide here in Hawaii physically.
Wow, it's impressive.
Like the game came out the beginning of this month, and we're here on the 20th, and it's still sold out physically.
Nice.
It's just like I was telling, because I interviewed the voice actor for Mega Man, Benjamin Diskin, like a couple of days after the game launched, and I told him that. He's like, "Holy crap, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's just you can't find it in stores." I guess we out here in Hawaii, we love us some Mega Man.
Of course. You gotta love the kid in the blue pajamas,
right? But I mean, do you think? I mean, not only with a new X title, because I feel like they kind of were hinting at that with the Legacy Collection 1 and 2. I think we're gonna possibly get a Legends 3.
Oh,
I hope.
Oh, the wound is still sore. I bought a Nintendo 3DS on launch day just because I knew Mega Man Legends 3 was going to come out for it. So you can imagine my devastation when I was holding a 3DS and months later it was finally revealed that Mega Man Legends 3 was just canceled. Man, that was horrible.
It made me not want to touch my 3DS for a good time.
On the plus side, I did know that Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance was also coming for the 3DS, so not all hope was lost. But man, I gotta say, when it comes to Kingdom Hearts, I was really one of the luckiest of its fans to be able to have every console that the games were released on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like when 358 over, so yeah, after Kingdom Hearts 1 came out for the PlayStation 2, I was good. I had it. I had a Game Boy Advance, so getting Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, that was not a problem. And then PlayStation 2, Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, and then that's when they decided to get weird. So now Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days was released for the Nintendo DS. Luckily, I had one. Then Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep was coming out for the PSP. I had one. Kingdom Hearts Coded was a cell phone game for Japanese players. I had a cell phone, so I was attempting to get it. But then they announced that they were just going to re-release it for the Nintendo DS, and still had one. And then Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance for the Nintendo 3DS. I had one. So, wow, lucky me. Not a hard plot to understand. It's just a lot to remember. And if you didn't have every console to play them, then you were out on information.
Yeah. And, that's another thing. Like, I wanted to get your take on Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, what do you think this is going to live up to the, what?
Do I think it's going to live up to the hype? Absolutely. One thing I can definitely say about Kingdom Hearts is that it's unpredictable. Like, there's no knowing where it's going to go. Like, you could try as you might. Tetsuya Nomura is either the guy is a mad genius or he's just mad. He has come up with such a strange story that is nothing short of a miracle. that it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, people have argued that Kingdom Hearts is not well written. Honestly, I think it is to a degree. I mean, yeah, they've retconned some things here and there, but they haven't really retconned like any old rules. They've just kind of said that, oh, it actually meant something else in a later game. And like one of the retcons is spoilers a little bit. In Kingdom Hearts 2, you have the big villain who has a whole bunch of flunkies working for him, and all of the flunkies believe that their ultimate goal is to make Kingdom Hearts because it will make them whole.
Yeah.
And that's what you're led to believe the entire time. You have nothing to really contradict it, and even the villain kind of leads off that that's what he's ultimately going for, and that's what he has all of his flunkies believing. Then you find out 2 games later that that villain wasn't going for that at all. He was actually tricking all of his flunkies into doing it because he was going to use all of them as vessels. So he knew the entire time that everything was crap, but all of his flunkies didn't know. They were just being led to believe it. People would consider that a retcon. I don't think that's a retcon. I think that's just clever writing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just because a story like Kingdom Hearts is written as it's made doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Because there are so many games and books and stories that have been written as they went along. I mean, do you think J.K. Rowling, when she made Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, knew in advance that she was going to make it all the way to Deathly Hallows? No.
No.
So it's like, yeah, just because you make up a story as you're going along doesn't mean that it's going to automatically be riddled with plot holes and bad and just be looked upon as bad writing. Kingdom Hearts is not perfect. No story is. But I think because of how passionate people are about it and how many people love these characters and how the characters drive them to keep going with the story because they love them so much, that's passion. And you can't have that if you have poor writing. So I disagree when they say that Kingdom Hearts is not, I mean, Kingdom Hearts is poorly written. I don't think so. It might not be the most well-written plot ever because it might be a little bit fundamentally hard to understand, especially if you have every game. But it's still well told. If you care enough for these characters, clearly you're invested.
I agree. I really agree. And it kind of makes me think of something else. Like I look at Kingdom Hearts because I understand the story now that I have, because I'm currently reviewing the new collection, which is basically everything that's come out before, on the PS4 like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm reviewing that, and as I'm playing everything in release order, and then I'm looking at the plot and putting the pieces together, I'm like, this flows perfectly. It makes sense.
It really does.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts has unfortunately been the subject of ridicule just because people are like, oh, it's so convoluted and it's so confusing. Because most people jumped from Kingdom Hearts 1 directly to Kingdom Hearts 2, not realizing that Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories is and was the legitimate true first sequel.
Yeah.
And I didn't fall for that. I knew right when it was announced and I saw the TV commercials for Chain of Memories that, oh, this is a sequel. Because you can see in the TV commercial in the 30 seconds that it's on TV that there's differences. Like, of course, it's Game Boy Advance. No doubt it's going to look different. But I saw different things. Like, there's a completely white room. I don't remember that in the first one. Like, I mean, there were some characters that I had never seen. Like, wow, I don't remember this guy from the first one. Like, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories for the Game Boy Advance must be a continuation. So I went and got it. So yeah, I wasn't stupid. Like, I saw the commercials, and just from seeing the commercial, you could look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is definitely not the same game.
Yeah, and the Kingdom Hearts series makes me, with the way Tetsuya Nomura has created that series, it makes me think of another Japanese creator, Tetsuya Takahashi, because I feel like the way they write is very similar. They have a general idea, but they write on the fly. And I was talking to some of the members in my Discord group when they were talking about how, Xenoblade Chronicles, it doesn't tie into Xenoblade Chronicles X, it doesn't tie into Xenosaga, Xenogears, and I'm like, if you've been playing it as they come out and you put the pieces together, yeah, they do. And they're like, oh, it's so convoluted. I'm like, no, it's not.
It's just a lot to remember.
Yeah. I'm like, if you played, like, I'm not sure if a lot of people have played and beaten Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but the end of 2, basically tied everything together. Yes, they don't have the rights to Saga or Gears, but the people who made Saga and Gears, Square and Namco, helped make Chronicles 2. And so that's why you have the Zohar from, Gears and Saga. Everything ties in together. And they tied it in by saying, hey, there's a multiverse.
Totally. So, yeah, for the people listening, if you ever wanted to get into the Kingdom Hearts series but were too frightened because there's so many games, now would be the perfect time to honestly, now's the perfect time to be a Kingdom Hearts fan, because they've made the series so easy to access. Yep. All of the games are now on one console, the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 3. It's completely easy accessible. They've already got the games ordered in which you should be playing them. Play the games by order of release. That's the way they were released. That's the way the story is meant to be told. If you play them in order of continuity, don't do that to yourself. No, just don't.
Really don't do that at all.
I mean, it can work, but it only makes sense if you've experienced them as they came out, which is the way they were meant to. Yeah. It's not hard to understand. The plot is fairly simple. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of subplots. It's just a lot to remember. It's not convoluted. It's not hard to understand. This is Metal Gear. This is not.
Right.
Where even if you play Metal Gear, that shit's hard to understand, man. I mean, there's so many Deus Ex Patriots.
Right.
My God. I'm a diehard Metal Gear junkie, and even now I'm totally I'm sometimes a little confused as to what some of the people's goals were. Like Ocelot, he's a quadruple agent.
Right?
Does he even know who he's working for? So yeah, Metal Gear, this is not. Kingdom Hearts is very simple and it's very easy to understand. To answer to some questions about that, at the end of the day, Kingdom Hearts itself is a MacGuffin. It's what people want. We don't know what it is. There's myths, legends, and rumors about what it could be and what it does. What it is and what it potentially can do is all left up to interpretations and theories of what characters imagine. Like, the ultimate villain believes that it's something that will allow him to reshape the universe into something he sees fit. It very well might be, but we don't know. Nobody's ever gotten it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been close calls, but no dice.
Yeah. And, another thing, just to add on to what you're saying, the reason so many people think it's convoluted is basically because each game is you're viewing things from the protagonist's perspective, who doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's usually how role-playing games have to work, because you have to play, and honestly, that's how Final Fantasy X did it perfectly. You had a protagonist who seemed like he was hot stuff, but then he was thrust into a world he didn't know, and so he's pretty much the link to the player, where other people have to explain things to him.
Yep. So true. All right, man, we're down to our last two questions. I want to ask you, since we brought up Konami earlier, do you think
questions?
Do you think Konami has become an irrelevant developer since they're focusing so much on pachinko, or do you think they're making a comeback but they're just being quiet on the front?
Oh, well, honestly, I think when it comes to Konami, they're gonna eat shit. It's difficult to say because you can't look at Konami or Capcom like the logo is just a malevolent being. I mean, there are people working there. There are people in high power making executive decisions. I'm pretty sure not all the people working at Konami like what they're going through. Like, I do know that based on what we've heard and what we've seen, that whoever is in charge of running Konami has made some terrible decisions. They treat their coworkers like garbage. Mm-hmm. If they're late from their lunch breaks, they get reprimanded horribly in embarrassing ways that would not fly in America.
Yeah.
They get treated like less than people. So it really just comes down to who's in charge and who's management. That either has to change or, something's got to give, because the company ultimately will fail if they don't have workers that stick by to continue doing their job well. I mean, I'm reminded of you know the old cartoon Tailspin.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Now the character Shere Khan, he's a rich tycoon businessman. He owns like the biggest of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in an episode, like some of his workers were like being treated as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows up, and I guess he fixes it or takes control. And like some of the people in charge down there were wondering, like, wow, like we're surprised that you would do that. And I love the line that he says, like, my dear, I demand only money and power, and having insufficient workers supply me with none of that. And so it's the same thing with like when you're an executive or president of a large company like Konami. It's like, what good is doing that if you have workers that hate your guts and can't do a good job because you treat them so foul?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough to say because I'm not in the company. I know that they are relying a lot on the pachinko because unfortunately Japanese people love to gamble.
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
True. All right. And you know, one of my last questions is,
I'll get on with it.
we see so much of this, especially when it comes to gaming YouTubers and content creators. This whole rampant fanboyism of Sony elitists or Xbox elitists. Like,
I was gonna call them X-boys.
Yeah, Xbox. You know, and it's weird. Or even you've got the Nintendo diehards, and it's funny to me as someone who, like, I personally own all the consoles. If I want a game, I view a gamer as someone who plays and doesn't really care the platform. You just love games and you just want a game. Like, when did it get to this point where it's so cliquish? I know we had that in the 90s with the Sega.
Honestly, that's not something that's new, man. That's always been there.
It just maybe social media and YouTube just amplify it more than what it noticeably was before. But
I don't know. I think it's continued the trend of what was already there. It's just we just got more competitors over time, and maybe people who grew up back then are still taking this seriously as if it mattered.
Yeah, like I see some people say like, "Oh, if you got Xbox, you got no games," and they're like, "You should just get a PlayStation." I'm like, okay, so
if you got an Xbox, you're a bitch.
Right? You know, I'm over here like, why do you care? If you don't care about the platform, why are you guys talking about it? Like, it blows my mind.
We want them to die, and we want you to die with them. You're what's wrong with this world.
Right? It's amazing because I remember 360 was on top last generation, and PlayStation 3
Whoa. Hold on. I'm pretty sure it was the Wii. Okay.
Secondary.
And
Secondary.
I'm still pretty sure the PS3 would whoop its ass.
True. Well, I think the PS3 at the end, it pulled ahead of the 360 at the tail end.
Okay.
But for like the first 4 to 5 years, the PS3 was struggling.
Oh yeah, the PS3 probably had one of the worst launches ever seen.
Oh, man.
Although Metal Gear Solid 4 did kind of save its ass.
Yeah.
Unless you're me, in which case, June 12th, 2008 was probably one of the worst days of my life.
What happened?
That was the launch day of Metal Gear Solid 4. I went to the midnight release and I picked up the special edition and I went home and my PS3 died.
Oh.
My PS3 got the yellow light of death, and I only got to play like an hour of the game before my PS3 yellow lighted on me. And then I had to call up Sony, and they'd have to send me a box to repair the PS3, and it took a month for me to finally play it. And so, yeah, June 12th, 2008 was like one of the worst days of my life.
Oh, man. Dude, that's... Oh.
Yeah, that was horrible. It was such a surreal experience because at the midnight launch, it was such a Metal Gear party because they were having Metal Gear competitions where they were giving out prizes, like Metal Gear themed prizes, and you had to answer a whole bunch of trivia questions about Metal Gear. Like Like, what was the one Metal Gear game in the early days that Hideo Kojima had nothing to do with? Like, oh, it was Snake's Revenge. Yeah, but we don't talk about that one. And so, yeah, and I won quite a few of the competitions, and I got some nifty prizes like gift cards to purchase at GameStop. And yeah, the special edition, it was in my hand. It looked really good. And yeah, when I finally got to go home and sit down and play it, I got to play like an hour of it. I got up to Merrill. And then I was like, you know what? It's midnight. Like, it's like 2 a.m. I'm really tired. I'm going to wake up, get myself cleaned out, refresh, and then I'm going to play it. Couldn't turn the PS3 on. It was yellow lighted. I was unbelievable.
Oh, man.
My cousin, Gene, who's on our show, he bought the game the same day, but he didn't get it at the midnight release. He bought it the same day. And then later on, as he continued to play it, he called me on the phone and told me how much he's loving it. And he got farther than me, of course, in the game. And he was just like, hey, well, I guess my Metal Gear knowledge is now greater than yours. And I was just like, challenge accepted!
Oh, man. Oh, man. But
Question?
I forgot. Well, okay. So the second part of that question was, what is your thoughts on?
Oh, the console wars. That's what this was about.
That, and the political statements and political correctness is being thrown within gaming now. I feel like politics have really started to infiltrate gaming.
I think people need to just not worry about that. Unfortunately, they get too caught up in SJWs and how their way of thinking can affect them, and I really don't think it can. Like, if they're already bitching about something, they weren't invested nor caring in the first place. So why try to appeal to those people if they're already not supporting you? You might as well do what you're going to do. Yeah. But there are times when I can understand why they don't want to touch that raw nerve. Like back in 2002, when Metal Gear Solid 2 was just about to come out. It was in development for some time, and the original ending was going to have like Raiden and like, I know we're talking about Metal Gear, and some of the audience members might not know what the hell a Metal Gear is. It's a big video game franchise that deals with government stuff and like special agents, secret agent, and all that stuff. Really cool, really cool. Highly recommend check it out. The ending of Metal Gear Solid 2 was going to have this big epic battle that took place at the end of the game, and it was going to take place in New York, but it was like a whole terrorist thing, and it happened right after 9/11. So yeah, Hideo Kojima had to completely rewrite the ending from Metal Gear Solid 2 and have it take place like in a different area, and it wasn't as climactic as it should have been. But you know what? There are some raw nerves that you don't want to touch, and like 9/11 was too soon. It was so devastating. America had never had something that tragic happen to us before. Like nothing on this much of a scale, to the point that people were fearing if the world was ending.
Yeah.
But then there are other times, like in today's, like, oh, I can't have female nudity in this video game because it's sexist, and when people start catering to that, like I guess what they did with the Overwatch thing, it's like, look at that female character in the promotional poster and promotional artwork. Her ass is like the main attraction of the whole picture. I can't support this, and then they change the image, and it's like, why do you bother doing that? Why change the image?
Yeah.
Like, what? They already don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. You got people, fake gamers like Arnita Sarkeesian is always complaining about something.
Oh, she's completely discredited. Like, I think even real active feminists have discredited her and be like, she's not a feminist. She's not with us. She doesn't speak with us. I mean, there are real feminist problems, like female problems. If you want, go to Saudi Arabia, man. That's a problem. But to go on to this topic, I don't think women have that much trouble over here in America as let on. I mean, I know quite a few women, and there's nothing holding them back. They can get whatever job they want. They can go to whatever college they want. They can get whatever education they want. They can run for freaking president of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. Like, what's this big holdup? So yeah, if you want to fight for female rights, that's all fine and good, but like, shouldn't you take that to where it's a real problem?
Yeah, and I hear a lot. Like, I've heard, especially like where I work, like I've heard some women say like there are things that men can do, jobs that they can have that women can. I'm like, I don't think that's really accurate. And as far as like the whole pay gap thing, I think a lot of that comes from the fact that some women just choose not to go into fields that men do.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that there are many female mechanics, and I don't think that's because there's no room for female mechanics. I just don't think women preferably would like to be mechanics.
Yeah, you know. Man, this though, like this has been
the same thing with a guy. It's like I don't think guys or a lot of guys would willingly be like, you know what, I want to go work at Macy's and sell purses.
Right?
It's by choice, man. You can do whatever you want or not do whatever you want. If a woman wants to be a mechanic, I don't think there's anything stopping her.
Exactly.
If you know what you're doing, if you know cars,
right?
do it. Go ahead.
Oh man, this podcast has been amazing, man. I know you got a lot of stuff you got to do today. So, anything you want to leave the audience with, or any advice you want to give?
Kicking me out, people. I knew it was coming. Matter of time. We started talking about women's rights. It was a matter of time before we got to politics, abortion, and religion.
Hey man, we can all. And I definitely want you to come back on the show. Like if you want to go into any topics, we could definitely do that. No.
Oh, I'm not touching that stuff. It's not that I can't touch it. It's a no-win scenario. There's no way to come out of it with everybody agreeing with you. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Don't. You know.
That's so true.
Not going there, honey.
Oh, but is there any advice you want to leave people that want to get into like YouTube or content creation, or
I believe I already touched upon that early on. If they sat through all my rambling and rattling, and if they haven't clicked on the podcast because they were just like, "Oh, shut this guy up! All he does is yeah, that's what I do. I'm really good at that. Sometimes I don't shut up. Sometimes I talk too damn much and say things I shouldn't. I'm sorry. That's who I am.
But that's the makings of great organic conversations, though.
Yeah, it can be controversial ones at that, definitely. my biggest advice, if you want to get into YouTube, don't. Okay. All right. You've all probably heard the same advice before, but you know what? There's a lot of truth to it. And maybe I can put a couple spins on some things. The first and obvious one you're going to hear is don't go into it expecting to be somebody. And you know what? There is a lot of truth to that. I've been at this for 10 years. I am nowhere near to the comfortable level that I thought I would be. I mean, you have guys like I started at pretty much the same time as like those well-known YouTube celebrities that you guys all follow and love and talk about so damn much. I started and did the same thing as they did. It just never caught on, or never caught on as much as those guys. And I'm capable and I do everything that they do. I just do it my own way. Mm-hmm. But I'm not up to their I'm just not up there with their audience. Like it's not necessarily my fault. It's just that's just how it is sometimes. You could blame YouTube's algorithm. You could throw the blame game around a lot. But at the end of the day, none of that should be your priority. Like you should be wanting to do this because you have a passion and a drive for being creative and just wanting to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's also some considerable dangers you got to worry about because you are putting yourself out there. That means you could be the subject of controversy one day. You could do something that, while it seemed harmless at the time and you're just doing it for fun, could lead to some disaster. Some people may hate you for no reason other than they just don't like your face. They don't like the sound of your voice. They don't like how you commentate because your voice sounds annoying to them, and they will proceed to tell you how annoying you sound. Like, I've seen people go through the worst of things. Like, I've received some horrible comments. I've seen people get the worst of it, and it's a horrible thing. Like, you could get horribly depressed and be a recluse, go into self-imposed exile because of how people treat you, because they can say horrible things and hide behind anonymous usernames, and you'll spend your days wondering why they said what they said and trying to rationalize it to yourself and going crazy trying to rationalize it, but there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just, unfortunately, how the world and the system of things works, and you may potentially have to deal with it if you get yourself on the internet. But the best advice I can give you is know that that's going to happen and ignore it, because they don't know you. They don't know who you are. They don't know what drives you. The people that will like your stuff and will want to come for what you do, they'll be there and they'll continue to support you. And even if you don't interact with them, they'll come. The audience will come, even if it's not overnight, which it probably won't be. If you keep doing what you do and you do it because you want to do it and do it for yourself, because you just like being an entertainer, it can open doors. Like, give it time, things will fall into place.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And with that, people, we're gonna be wrapping up this podcast. I want to thank everyone who's watching and listening to it. You'll be able to catch this on YouTube on replay if you want to at youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova. You'll also be able to catch it on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher. Oh man, that bus wanted to interrupt that promo right there. Wow.
So yes, guys, if you want to follow me, I'm William Morris from thebrotherhoodofgaming.com. You can check us out, www.thebrotherhoodofgaming.com. You can check us out there. That's our official website. You can look up The Brotherhood of Gaming on YouTube, and you can find us there. You can follow me on Twitter, which is TBO Gaming, like TBOG Gaming. We're very easy to find. Our logo is very recognizable. You'll know it when you see it. And we're always there. We're always promoting new content. We're always active. So, you know what? Hit us up. You might like what you see. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't.
Hey, and what's some of the things that you're working on that you can let the audience know about?
Well, considering it's October, we had some Castlevania reviews in mind. Like Castlevania Requiem is coming out very soon, so we're going to try to do something with that. I'm still working on the Mega Man X marathon, but I have to go to the dentist, so I'm trying to wait until they fix my tooth, so I don't go on the camera looking like a buck tooth with a huge gap in between my teeth, because I did that once and it looks ugly. So yeah, I'm waiting until that gets done. But we do have a lot of things in the works. Some impulsive, some take a little time to function. Always working on tales of series, videos, and content. It just we're also listening to what the audience wants, and we have polls, straw polls, just to gauge what the audience is looking for, what they might be interested in. So we're very interactive, and it's a fun show to watch. I mean, if you like Pat the NES Punk, if you like Eagle Raptor, if you like The Nerd, if you like, I guess The Completionist. I've never seen any of his stuff, but we've been compared to The Completionist. Although, funnily enough, some people said, hey, you guys are just like The Completionist, but your videos are better. Like,
I agree.
Oh, thank you. I've never seen The Completionist. I wouldn't know. But yeah, if you like all those guys, then you should be right at home with the stuff that we do. It's the same stuff, but we put our own spin on it, and it makes us unique and it makes us fun. We have a sarcastic robot.
Yep.
So there you guys have it. That's me, William Morris. And I'm also a voice actor who's going to be in multiple projects and things in the future, hopefully, if things work out. So those are my hopes and dreams. Maybe you can support them. Maybe you can wish death upon me. I know some people have. And you know what? Oh well.
Screw those haters. You know what? When you're doing great things and people hate, that just tells you how you're on the right path. So
I've heard that, but some people have said that that's a weird path to follow, isn't
it? That's just because of political correctness with a lot of people. So, hey, you're doing great things. I've followed you guys for years, been a fan for years. You've inspired me to be doing what I'm doing. So I have to thank you personally for being an inspiration for me and for millions of others. I'm saying millions because you've got millions of views. So millions of others.
Wow, amazing.
And with that being said, people, I don't have a bus that's going to interrupt me this time. So this will be up on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as TuneIn Radio. So make sure you catch Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova podcast, on any of those outlets. With that being said, I want to thank my guest, William Morris, for coming on the show. And make sure you subscribe and follow him on everything that he's on YouTube, Google, on YouTube. Oh, I just said that. Man, I'm having brain farts right now. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and on their website, thebrotherhoodofgaming.com. The links to everything is in the description below, so make sure you go and check them out. And I'm telling you, go and check them out. Amazing content. And with that being said, we're going to close out the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.